afternoon, everyone, and I welcome you to this next session, Digital Law and Order. And I have the pleasure of joining us this afternoon, Ms. Sutapa Sanyal, former Director General of Police. Dr. Amrita Das, she'll be on a video with us, who is the founder director, Institute for Career Studies. Mr. D. Gautam Sawang, Director General of Police from Andhra Pradesh, and Mr. Loknath Behra, Director General of Police from Kerala. Dr. B. N. Shetty, Chief Technology Officer at Ministry of Home Affairs and former Deputy Director General, NIC. Mr. Jaspreet Singh, Risk Consulting Markets Leader, India, Ernst & Young. In fact, you know, what Samirji, you talked about and what Sutapaji said, if I may add a couple of things, which probably would refresh her memory. The inspiration to Sutapaji's sensitivity towards gender came particularly during the time when she was in school. I am open to correction, but I remember when she said that, I always wanted to be in a position where I could serve and help people, yes. Unquote. And if I'm also not mistaken, you were almost veering towards academics as a profession when you realize that in case you want to serve people, nothing better than joining the police force. And that was the inspiration, and how wonderful it was that you made it and found yourself to be the only woman in your entire batch in IPS. Great, it's been a great journey ever since. So would you like to reflect a little bit on, how is it that initially the impressions that you had, and probably moving forward, how you formed up your thoughts, ideas, and why you felt that, getting into a skewed society wherein women is supposed not to be joining a male-dominated bastion, which is a police force?
Dr. Dhanjali, you yourself said, I started my career as a lecturer in economics in Patna University. But then gradually I realized that I actually needed to get into a space where I could, kind of serve people, serve the underserved, because my father was also in the civil services, and I noticed the kind of things he was doing, the kind of dialogues we used to have, they all pointed somehow towards that direction. And so I got into this profession. But, many people have asked me that if you face so much of gender discrimination and this and that, so why did you continue in it? Well, so I tell them, I'm a little bit ziddy that way. So I thought that, okay, if I have come this far on a journey and a chosen journey, then why should I go back? I didn't come this far to come just this far. So that was something which kept on pushing me. And I knew that as more women came along, and as your tribe increases, it's easier to have templates, templates. But if you're the only one, that ajuba, that outlier kind of stuff, then it becomes a bit difficult. And so since that overwhelming idea kept on pushing me, I kept on going forward. There was just no looking back. That's it.
Amazing. Congratulations to you. And actually, if you did not notice, that you are the only woman on this panel.
It will keep on happening till there are more of our kind. And that's why it's very important, because it's otherwise, you kind of indulge into group thinking. Mm-hmm. So you need diversity. And that's why, that's why I have continued working on diversity and inclusion, because I had entered a profession where there was virtually no diversity. So what to talk of inclusivity, right? That sense of belongingness is very important for the individual as well as the organization. So we must have diversity. And it is not just, limited to gender or maybe the binaries. It goes beyond gender. It goes into so many areas. But the bottom line is every organization would do well, would do better with more diversity around in it.
Sure. So this takes us to the discussion, digital law and order. Adoption of technology is never an easy thing, particularly in the government. And in the case of police, the matter is further complicated by the existence of huge rank hierarchies which inhibit free and frank communication. So technologies always ran the risk of implementation without adequate feedback or consultation with the stakeholders, whether it is judiciary or the police force, who were to use these softwares or emerging technologies in the field. So the post of the chief technology officers per se, nor any efforts at systematic change management were visible in many of such organizations or departments. So that remains one of the big challenge. This panel, we would like to look at how imperatives have changed post-COVID and post-social media becoming a major influence on shaping up democracy and society. There are issues specific to women and child safety. Similarly, most state police departments have a vision on how 2021-25, they are going to become a digitally enabled police force in a digital state. We are going to be, what are the linkages that are going to be with the judicial system? And we need to examine the shape of things to come and how our law and policing would keep up to speed. So with this, I first invite, although we have the lady to go as our first speaker, but I would request the most experienced IPS officer amongst us to speak at the end. And in between, I move on to invite Mr. D. Gautam Sawant, Director General of Police from Andhra Pradesh.
Yeah, before Mr. Samang comes on, welcome Mr. Samang. If I may say a few words. You know, in 2016, I had edited a book. It was called Modi's Odyssey, Digital India, Developed India. It was a collection of essays by various domain experts looking at their domain and suggesting what is it that India has to do in that domain for Digital India to succeed. The book had returned about 61 recommendations. And I'm happy to tell you that almost all of them became part of some national flagship scheme or the other. And amongst the far-reaching ideas was the idea of UPI, the idea of direct benefit transfer, and going beyond Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile to cloud, Aadhaar and mobile, and saying now more and more public services should be available on the cloud. There was one section in that book devoted just to law and justice and policing. And amongst the contributors, Mr. Rakesh Asthana had written on e-enabling police for better law enforcement. There was a paper on e-enablement of Indian judicial system, and a view from Jharkhand state by Mr. Satyan Narayan Pradhan. Now, all these gentlemen are at very senior positions today, and they can look back and see how it panned out. From our perspective, a lot of ground has been covered in digital law and order from where we were before 2016 to 2019. Now the thing is that given the change scenario, given COVID, and given the fact that more and more digitalization is coming in, I think the police departments would across the country have a view of how do they become one police force rather than city by city and district by district and municipality by municipality. How do you be a connected police force that helps you deliver better digital law and order? And to that end, I had invited this panel discussion. The idea is whatever your thought process is, if it can eventually be developed into a paper that can go into the book, that would be very nice. So these are just your initial thoughts. We can maybe pick these up, make a draft paper, have some further discussions and roundtables around it so that a rugged kind of a thing comes out. Also, the fact is that, you know, it's a concurrent, you know, finally policing is a state subject, but then center also has a role to play. So how will this center and state interplay play itself out in digital world in law and justice is another area. And then there's an ecosystem. It's not just policing. How does it interface with the judicial system? Then, you know, the whole thing is going cyber. The whole society is going cyber. So the nature of crime is going to change. The nature of law enforcement is going to change. the kind of issues women are going to face are going to be very different. So what is the 360-degree view? We wanted you to help us understand is that view that you may have for your state and where we could be going. With that, back to Mr. Gautam Sawant. And of course, you've done an excellent job already on women's safety. So compliments to you as well.
Thank you very much, Kocher Sahab and Mr. Dhanraj for giving this opportunity to participate in this discussion. Now, we are all aware that globally and particularly in our country, we have been talking about digital India and the digital transformation in the digital state, which is the relevant topic of the discussion. And since the last decade or so, there has been quite a progress in this theater, in this domain. And particularly so, the COVID and the post-COVID situation and scenario, which we have all witnessed and experienced. And the kind of challenge, in fact, the whole mankind was challenged by this COVID-19 pandemic. And the kind of challenge which has really thrown up situations, which has really challenged the mankind to come up with kinds of solutions to meet with that scenario and the situations on hand. And in this particular context, it was the digital, what you call medium, which was so important and imperative, which really leveraged the expectations, helped us to meet with the expectations, to bring in the transformation and change. We saw during this period a paradigm shift in all domains of our engagement, in all spheres of activities, whether it's the economy, whether it's the industry, whether it is look at the employment scenario, or the whole world has changed. And in this kind of a scenario, obviously the police and the sphere of maintenance of law and order also has changed the kind of expectations. So it is so important that we also try to find solutions, how to come up to speed and meet with those expectations. Now, the way the business has been conducted itself has changed. It's not physical proximity, but then yet at the same time, we need to be accessible and available. So that kind of a situation, of course, police had to really look at various ways and means, and that has really ushered in a lot of change within the department, and using technology particularly, and going digital. So the circumstances had created such a situation that what was being envisaged for our country by Honorable Prime Minister in terms of digital India, digital transformation, was really hastened. Then coming to the kind of technology initiatives within the police to perform better and to deliver better. When you say perform better, obviously, we talk in terms of bringing in more accountability, we bring in more efficiency, bringing in more transparency, and bringing a better and efficient delivery of police services. Now, with that kind of expectation, very often the digital or technology infusement in our functioning has been mostly confined to isolated or uh, uh, in verticals which may not be really cohesive or integrated. And also such initiatives may be sporadic. It may not be in a very programmatic fashion. It may be individual initiatives of officers concerned, and which will eventually have issues about its consistency and thereafter sustainability. So therefore, any initiative which is brought about, we always need to look at it from its sustainability point of view, and also in an integrated manner, so that there is an ecosystem created in a comprehensive fashion. Now, for instance, in Andhra Pradesh, just to give you an example, there has been a lot of initiative on women's safety and security sphere. The state of Andhra Pradesh has accorded priority to women's safety and security. And towards that, we also brought in a lot of technological innovations using the digital sphere for making us more effective. So this initiative, again, cannot be seen in isolation. Like, police is just one part of the criminal justice system. When you say women's safety, women's security, and when you say that justice is to be done and justice is to be delivered, it's not that just the police needs to be efficient, police needs to be transparent, or police needs to be accountable, and police is able to give the delivery of the services. But at the same time, it's equally important that the other elements of the criminal justice system, other than the police, the prosecution, the judiciary, and the corrections, all these pillars of and the stakeholders and the elements of the criminal justice system has to really deliver. And towards that direction is also the ICJS initiative, the interoperable criminal justice system. But before we go there, it is important that all these verticals and elements of the criminal justice system are equally and properly enabled on the ground to meet with these requirements. So when you talk about women's safety, first of all, we need to really create police capacities to meet with that expectation. And then create circumstances and situation where the target group is able to access the police, and then police capacities in terms of responding to a situation, and then as part of the criminal justice system, making sure that investigation is completed as soon as time as possible. All the evidences are collected, case investigation is completed, and then case charged, so that the next vertical of the criminal justice system takes over. But again, on the ground, it's also important that we create mechanisms where the woman feel safe in the
Mr. Sawang is dropped out, perhaps. No, he's there, but
like even you don't have to press the SOS, you just have to shake it 3 times, and a 10-second bit of voice as well as the video gets transmitted to the control room. And from the control room, immediately the geo coordinates are also available, and there will be a phone call, and then there would be a response mechanism. In the urban areas, we are able to ensure an average time of police response within 5 minutes. In the rural areas, it's 10 minutes. which is also a global standard. So a woman feels safe with regards to their safety, and they are also assured that police responds in time. So likewise, there are other platforms across the social media where we have made ourselves available for women and girls to reach out very quickly to the police and making sure that the police responds very quickly. And as part of this is also again the capacity of all the stakeholders is also important. Whether it's the police station, whether it is the courts, whether it is the prosecution, or even otherwise reaching out by many other outreach programs to reach out to the segment of the society and make them feel safe. So in other words, in maintenance of law and order, in providing security services, technology and digital space is so very important. And in times to come, it is only going to be increased, seeing the kind of development. Now, we are aware that out of the 1.39 billion population, 35% of them in our country live in urban centers, and there is 1.10 billion mobile connections. That is about 79% use mobile. 624 million internet users, and 45% of our population uses internet, and 448 million social media users, that is 32%, are on, they are social media users. So the whole paradigm and the dynamics have changed. It needs a very quick response on the part of the police. Things change in a very fast pace. It's important that the police is really on top of it, and then put in place mechanism to watch what is happening in this digital space, and then prepare itself in a very comprehensive manner to respond to the emergent needs, which very quickly transforms and progresses. So the kind of interventions are also very, very important in this kind of a domain. It's a very fast-paced domain. So therefore, it's important that the police really adopts this technology which is available in the market, and then builds its capacities. But on the other hand, we see that the kind of support which the police requires is not really forthcoming. Police being a state subject, and for mostly the state governments, they have other priorities, perhaps more welfare and development aspects rather than law and order, safety and security. So therefore, mostly we don't get that kind of support very quickly and easily from the state governments, and most states really look towards the government of India through its police modernization and other security related expenditure and such kind of supports, which brings about a consistency in terms of police capacities across the country. So therefore, as we go along, there is also, while we agree that it's a state subject, there is also equally, there is a need for looking at policing, the standards of policing, policing capacities, and mechanisms where across the country we are, there is a common standards with regards to policing. And it was just what Gurucharan had just mentioned, that there is a need that the police across the country are also hooked on to common bases, databases, common platforms where we can very quickly get the benefit of the capacities that is available and which technology can provide. So we are, of course, gravitating towards that direction. But then again, as I said, there is a tendency that they are all isolated and individual verticals, and there is a need for a comprehensive, cohesive, and integrated engagement as we go along. So with these words, we are really looking forward. Thank you for this opportunity to be on this forum. And I really appreciate the Scotch for providing this kind of a opportunity and bringing together such subjects and bringing us all together, all the stakeholders, for a discussion and a better understanding as to what lays ahead of us. Thank you, and Jai Hind.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Sawang. It was quite interesting to hear you speak. And you also talked about, certain challenges from the technology side that possibly ail the justice as well as the policing system, and the need for standards and the common databases. And we have a man with us, Dr. B.N. Shetty. So he has spent his lifetime working on such systems, whether it is the CCTNS or otherwise the passport system, security, and now working on ICJS, and he's the Chief Technology Officer with Ministry of Home Affairs. So Dr. Shetty,
Yes.
your perspective, whatever has been raised, whatever concerns have been raised by Mr. Sawang. So how do you address that?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon to everybody. See, the concern is there if you go back and see about 5 years back, if you see 5 years back and today, there is a lot of difference. The officer was talking about actually the ICJ system, where he could actually see where we are trying to go with the one data, one entry. It is possible. The approach, what we could see is in that actually, as I am seeing that actually, see, about 5 years back, if you have all these criminal justice systems are silos, like a physical silos, these digital systems. There were difficulties in sharing information and intelligence between the states and center, which leads to delay in justice delivery system. Many times the investigations, many times it may lead to denying even the justice. Due to continuous effort by the Department of Justice, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, and the Home Ministry, this was possible actually. These police, prosecution, forensics, court, and prison are integrated and are being achieved one data, one entry. That is actually the main goal of the whole system. When we have started actually from the beginning, when the complaint starts coming, the same complaint is converted into the FIR, and then it goes to the investigations, to the forensic department, prosecution. Then after that, it goes to the court, then to the prison. The same data moves. It was not actually possible to think about if you think about 5 years back. Now today it is feasible. I mean, it is possible to coordinate even though it is a state subject. Law and order is a state subject, but still it is feasible today to actually look into all together. Again, if you see 3 years back, prosecution and forensic department were earlier largely neglected area and caused major reason for poor conviction rate and delay in delivery of justice. Last 3 years, these departments have also adopted considerable IT tools and joined the criminal system online. Now, if you see the prisons, there are about 1,300, 400 prisons. These the prison data, now it is available completely online for all law enforcement agencies and courts, which helps in taking quick actions in justice delivery system. The cases and judgments made at various courts are available now online, which are being used for cross-referring while hearing similar cases. Probably in future digital law and order, the artificial intelligence platform may enable to link these judgments automatically with the similar cases for easy reference and quick disposal. And after achieving one data, one century, we are not too far to achieve one country, one police station. Ideally, the digital law and order situation, the citizen should have the provision to make complaints online on a single portal from anywhere at any time. Then only actually it is feasible. Now, if you see that many people have the experience of facing difficulty in identifying the concerned police station for registering a complaint. Registering complaint is a real challenge on today. Even if I don't know, in many cases, if I'm on the roadside of the other side or this side, depends on the police station. This is really makes it very difficult for the people. Suppose if I go to, for example, if I go outside somewhere else on a tour, there may be a circumstance that I have to register a complaint in other places. This generally it is very difficult to figure out how and where to register a complaint. Single digital portal should be there for the whole country, would help in such situations. Most of the police stations are geofenced today, and it is not difficult to link the location of the crime scene to a police station. Yes, I am there, or it's closed.
Yeah, you're there.
Oh, you're very much there.
I'm there, but I don't know, screen has gone, I don't know.
No,
No,
we
no,
can,
just minimize. There is a poll in front of you. Just minimize it.
Oh, I see, it's,
Yeah, you're there.
no, I'm,
we can still hear you. Go ahead, please.
You can see-
okay, I'll go ahead with that. Okay.
Yes.
The cases and judgments made available, and from there you can see that this can be achieved. Now, after actually the expectation of the public is to have single digital platform for the whole country to make the complaint. Most of the police stations are geofenced that practically it is possible. Presently, as you all aware that now, the cybercrimes are reported in National Cybercrime Portal. It's a single NCRP portal, irrespective of the victim's location, which are made available to the concerned state and police stations for investigation. Once the complaints are made in the portal, the complaints are segregated and sent to the various police stations. Automatically depends on the situation. That means, in case of cyber crimes, NCRP portal is a single police station for the whole country. In future, the same concept can be extended to for all the crimes to achieve one country, one police station. Now, what I exactly want to say, the expectation of the citizens today is day by day increases. As the technology develops, the people expectation equally develops. So the people want that actually more conveniently they can complain, and more completely they can monitor it. The day they make the complaint, they want to know that where is my complaint, what is my status, it is feasible. Now this has been, the police departments have made it possible today. If you see that the portal was the complaint in the cybercrime, the status of the complaint can be seen. And so that is why the goal now is that in the future, in the digital state, the citizen wants that it should be, as far as the complaining and handling the criminal cases, this should be one country and one police station. Now, I want to conclude here by saying that in digital state, every citizen has to have friendly complaining mechanism, like one country, one police station, and quick delivery of justice. I would like to thank all of you for patiently hearing me and giving me the opportunity to part of this informative summit. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shetty. We are joined by Mr. Loknath Behra from Kerala. Mr. Behra, moving over to you, asking you on, as the pace of technology is moving so fast, how do you see, in times to come, the law and policing would keep pace along with that? And what would be your vision of 2021 to become a digitally enabled police force?
Yeah, Gulshan Saab, actually, good afternoon to you and to my colleagues and to Dr. Sethi. And you know that Kerala actually produce the best sprinters. So we run very fast. So that is the technology notwithstanding. So we can say that we use technology day in and day out, and we have pronounced ourselves to be a techno-driven force. Anything and other thing is done with technology. We are the first step of state police. Probably we have a paperless office. All the offices are paperless, and we are actually our indigenous solutions for that. We have not taken the e-office. We started in 2010, and for the 11 years it is working without any problem. So what happens is that technology is that what is appropriate is the most important thing. We should not get into a vendor-driven technology. That is all the time always I say that what the people want and how you are going to give that, there you use it. You know, in Kerala, why the technology is so actually being used in the police is not because that I like the technology. It is because the people like technology. So that is how actually we have the highest penetration of the smartphones in the country. We have the highest number of actually per square kilometer internet connections. All these things actually make us to think that how technology can take our services to the people. So I'll tell you that we are going to establish the first police station, which is paperless and manless. It's already done. It is actually little bit of things we have taken from the Dubai police. I went there and had a discussion with them, and we are going to establish it. All the things have been ready, and we are going to start it. Within 3 months, we will make it. So you don't have to actually go to a police station. So that is how we are going to work in this particular manner. See, what happens is that, as Dr. Sethi said, he has a vision, probably saying, probably one day we should think about one police station in the whole country. Maybe, but that up to that time, whether I will be alive or I don't know. But one day or other, we must think in that particular way so that the benchmark is high and we try to achieve it. So what we do is in Kerala is that our actually legally, our police force is community driven. It is legally, it is the only force on the whole country. The community policing has been legalized. It is there in the Kerala Police Act itself. So whether I like it or you like it, doesn't matter. It is the law you have to implement. So we go to the people and the people come to us and the service is delivered. And the service is delivered mostly through technology. Say, in that particular manner, but suppose you take the example of, we have a central intrusion monitoring system. We were talking today morning in some other fora about this particular central intrusion monitoring system is a very highly sophisticated sensor-based system. Now, it has been put in commercial institutions or banks or Dukan and other things. Anybody intrudes and we get a pop-up here in Trivandrum, anywhere in Kerala. And we have kept that 8 minutes is the response time to reach. So if a burglar or a thief is there inside a shop and the pop-up has come, in 8 minutes we'll be there. That is how actually it has been. This is there in actually the best model in the whole world for the SIM-Siege Kuala Lumpur. The same company, I think they have installed this system in whole of Kerala. So what happens is, we also, as I said, this police app, we have a police application, mobile app. It gives us 38 services to the people. It is one of the most downloaded app in Kerala. So what do we say now? We are going in the mode of elections. So we were thinking, I'm actually 6th is the polling day. We are all on the toes of our to have a very peaceful, smooth and event-free actually elections. You know, I was very surprised. I actually told some time back that, what we do is that we make a election bandobast scheme. So where the people will be posted, how many will be there, who will be in the patrolling, all these things. It takes long time to prepare it. You know, my poets in the actually computer center, the ICT center, we call it, they developed a software. It is called Deploy. Today, it has been actually put in use. We showed it to the Election Commission of India also. And they were so amazed that within half an hour, a particular scheme of bandobast is prepared. It is only actually, it is so, and it also takes care of the randomization of the people who can be posted from distant from their own place, etc. So what I wanted to say is, lot of technology is there, but one particular group of people must think that what should be the appropriate technology to be there for the police. We cannot actually use certain technology which may not be actually appropriate at this point of time. Take the example of robo. My office receptionist is a robo. So the robo salutes you, robo asks you questions, where do you want to go? And that girl, we have made it a girl who says, okay, why do you want to meet the DG, etc. So these are actually some of the small things, but the bigger things will certainly come. And we should make the technology, we should not be the slave of technology. We should actually use it to the benefit of the people first and the benefit of ours. That is my actually philosophical view. We can talk on technology, many things on this platform, but other people are there. I can tell you, Gulshan Sahab, all the persons who have been invited, they are personally known to me for ages. So they are all techno-savvy people. They love technology. So whether it is happening in Kerala or whether it is happening in Andhra Pradesh, whether it is happening in Maharashtra, we learn from each other. I cannot say that I have learned everything from my people. It is the best thing in India. We actually share and actually try to implement it with a little bit of modification as per the socio-economic and cultural pursuits of the particular place. Good that you actually bring us onto a platform to discuss. We learn many things. Now we will certainly debate about Dr. Sethi's concept of one country and one police station. So thank you very much. And I am here. Anything you want to ask, you can ask me. Thank you.
We'll get into a discussion. Let me invite Sutapaji for your comments, your vision. You have seen it, done it all, and particularly on the women and child safety. So how do you see the digital police as it happens, in the year 2021-25, the shape that it takes?
I'll just take an overview first of policing in general. So thank you for having me on the panel, on this August panel with such August speakers and my colleagues, my senior colleagues, my junior colleagues out there. So over the centuries, the nature of policing has evolved with respect to two things. First, the emerging needs of society for safety and security, and number two, the changing patterns of crime. So what has been the response of the police, which inevitably becomes the most visible arm of the executive? So it has been under the heads of maintenance of law and order and prevention and detection of crime. Now, in the process, policing has come a long, long way from the time when it was sufficient to have a couple of able-bodied men of the village to look after the safety and security of the entire village, or from the times of Chanakya, when state-sponsored spies hid in the hollows of tree trunks and observed what was going on, and then obviously reported it to the powers that be in the kingdom. Urbanization, currently urbanization, particularly the growth of peri-urban areas and migration, these have also given rise to a set of law and order problems and crimes which were not noticed before. Proliferation of transnational organized crimes like human trafficking or what is known as the modern day slavery, which I find it reflects human ingenuity at its devilish worst. The illegal arms trade and the shadow pandemic of narcotics, the drugs, uh, and various other forms of crimes such as terrorism or even betting for that matter. These have challenged both the internal as well as the external securities of nations. And this is because of the huge and surreptitious money laundering and fund transfers being done through these crimes, which are further being used for various other criminal activities. These are challenging things. Another phenomenon that has become overwhelming is the huge usage of the cyberspace for criminal activities. For example, number one, internet frauds, ranging from hacking of emails and social media platforms through clickbaits or other means. Number two, identity theft, the phishing, the farming, the cloning, etc., etc. Third is financial frauds related to digital wallets, credit card, debit card, ATM card, etc. And then what you asked me, crimes against women and children, who form about 70 to 80% of the population and are at the intersectionality of various kinds of vulnerabilities. And the crimes related to them are cyberbullying, online abuse, especially online child abuse, especially child sexual abuse, pornography, sexting, grooming, sextortion, and even trafficking, online trafficking. Now, what starts as harmless chat in chat rooms may progress into physical meeting ups, kidnappings, abductions, rapes, and even murders. After all, there is no dearth of predators who are online, especially in today's world and especially during the COVID times. Another important thing is with the workspaces having shifted from physical spaces to one's homes, have actually seen the exponential growth of domestic violence cases because many a times the women, and for that matter, other family members also are locked in with the abusers, especially during the lockdowns which we experienced, and online harassment of women, sexual harassment of women. Now, the growth of, there's another very important thing, the growth of dark and the deep web and the use of cryptocurrency in dealings on this component of the web and various novel ways of money laundering. This is going to bring in another wave of challenges for the police in the future. And finally, the black swan effect of COVID-19 has further exposed and widened each of these fault lines which I have spoken before. The new normal will call for a specialization and learning of new skill sets on the part of the police. And apart from this, an overall convergence between all the stakeholders, because as Mr. Gautam said, police is just one of the stakeholders in this entire justice delivery system. So that is something which we need to keep in mind. So how has the police machinery responded to all these changes so far? Well, for the crime detection and control part of their function, they have come up with citizen-friendly measures like upgrading and improving the functioning of the various toll-free helplines, which often become the lifeline of women and children. Then they have round-the-clock functioning of the command and control centers. They have proactive and increasing visibility of the force on the ground and streamlining and upscaling the functioning of cyber cells. You see so many cyber cells across the country, and one of the driving forces behind it is the increasing number of crimes in the cyberspace. Then it has also started using advanced technology, digital or otherwise, in their day-to-day work. And we also see the active presence of several national agencies like the NIA, the NCB, the ED, and their state counterparts like the ATS, STF, SOG, etc. There's a lot of emphasis on training and workshops, the hard skills and the soft skills, because the times have changed. And I know this for sure because I'm a part of this training in most of the states under the aegis of the Kailash Satyarthi Children's Foundation. We go around giving training. I lead this training component related to child protection and child rights with police across the country and of all ranks of officers. Now, for the law and order component part, the police has made innovative use of digital tools to support their law and order operations. And we have the examples of electronic and digital surveillance, the use of drones for maintaining law and order, the active presence on social media handles, identifying fakes and deep fakes, which have great capacity to create a lot of havoc so far as law and order is concerned, and reaching out to service providers for assistance in order to prevent these potentially harmful contents from going viral. Apart from this, they have also at times used selective suspension of the internet and have of course leveraged the use of the increasing use of virtual trials and admissibility of digital evidence, which happens during the trials. And then I come to the question as to how does the organization, the police organization, become future ready, because that is basically what you asked. Well, for this, it has to do some kind of design thinking around the concepts of data-driven, evidence-based policing. That is going to become very, very important in the days to come. They have to leverage the AI, the VR, the machine learning, and the blockchain technologies. Interestingly, blockchain technology has been used in the dark web, which I was talking of. There's a Silk Road issue in it. So that will become important. Data mining with better and swifter techniques of sifting the data. Problem today is not a dearth of data. The problem today is too much of data. So you need to cull out what you actually need, and that has to be done very quickly and efficiently, accurately. And then, of course, although I know there is a lot of negative noise around the issue of predictive policing, but still I feel that with adequate controls and built-in checks over the biases which are attributed to predictive policing, it can be a brilliant tool for the future policing, which we are looking at. However, there is a caution which I would like to offer, and that is at no stage should the human being behind all this, behind the machine, or at the end of the justice delivery system, by no means should that human being be forgotten. It has always to be kept in mind. And so now I would like to wind up with the area in which I work, that is women and children. And initially you asked the question. And what I feel is with the exponential growth of crimes against women and children, there will be a need to reimagine policing. We need to do that. We need to reinvent certain components of the policing, the traditional format of policing, which we have been doing. And it has to be done on the lines of gender sensitive and child-friendly community policing. That's what I call it, based on the public-private partnership module, because that's a very, very helpful module. Because you tend to pool in the resources, the competencies of various stakeholders, and that is exactly what we want today. That is the strategy which is going to create that critical mass. People with a background of physics would talk of the escape velocity. Well, social change also requires escape velocity, and that can be garnered by the synergy through this format of a policing. And many of the states whose police chiefs are here today on the panel have actually successfully done this in the past and are really, really focused on doing this. And as you had said in my introduction, while introducing me, I had also designed and implemented a holistic framework of such 9 innovative programs way back in 2014 to 17 in UP. And it had actually started showing the green shoots at that point of time. Now, there's an urgent need, I feel, for proactive victim slash survivor sensitive, compassionate, and empathetic policing for these two vulnerable segments of society, women and children. Because, all said and done, I deeply, deeply feel that policing is a service delivery system, which in the ultimate analysis will have to adapt itself, will have to repurpose itself and tailor its responses to cater to the needs and expectations of citizenry and the society for which it is basically meant to serve. So these were a couple of my thoughts on the topic. So yes, there you are.
Well, thank you so much. It adds a couple of new dimensions to the debate. A couple of things which I pick up from what you just said, that it has to be an evidence-based policing, which is data-driven, and a whole lot of technologies which underlay that. And the moment we say data, we have known to have a multiplicity of data which exists in silos, and we have not been able to put them together on one grid. And that's something which has been languishing for a very, very long time. So let me ask Mr. Sawang, when we say our digital policing vision 21-25, in absence of the common data to mine, how do we improve our policing given such impediments?
Well, thank you, Kushan. Actually, we are now able to get access to data by way of the CCTNS, and ICJ is becoming more and more operational. Now, as what Mr. Shetty had mentioned, both these national architectures were in to bring about oneness, to bring the country in one platform, so that we can take advantage of the access to the data, and not only taking advantage in the sense of trying to be more efficient, but also in a very Madam just mentioned about predictive analysis, predictive policing, but we would be progressing to a stage of prescriptive analysis and prescriptive policing too, once we have this access to the databases. Now, there are so many domains, again, within the functioning of the criminal justice system as a comprehensive whole. At the same time, the vertical, each verticals, like police vertical, there are so many aspects to it. Integration is one, but then on the ground, there are many practical sides to it, many domains to it. It's not only being effective, but also giving them a sense of being, safe. So we need to really, there are some which are not totally tangibles that we can talk about, but we need to also give them a sense of reassurance that something is available. And as I said earlier, you see the pace is so fast that we need to really very quickly intervene on certain domains. Now, again, this is very sphere specific. Now you talk about the social media platform or the internet domain. It needs a very quick intervention. But then you look at the conventional sphere, we still have a large section of our society and the population which are not totally affected by that. So that needs a very conventional kind of response. So the paradigm again is very huge. On one end, you need to be very high tech, you need to be very contemporary, you need to be very tech savvy, you need to be digitally smart. And on the other hand, you need to be also conventionally poised to respond to that kind of a kind of expectations and deliveries and interventions. So this is indeed quite a challenge. The extremities of the police's actual existence, the kind of presence and engagement on the ground. We are on one hand tech savvy, on the other hand very conventional kind of a response. So this paradigm, very often we find it very difficult to really bring coherence in that. And then there is also a lack of appreciation and understanding of the concept of the policing domain, the kind that we are facing today. Now, as part of that is, of course, the being data driven is one. We all have our own databases. I think each state has its own state crime record bureau. You have the National Crime Record Bureau. That is a different vertical again, other than the CCTNS. Now, sometimes these two don't talk to each other also. So, but then we try to extrapolate, interpolate, and try to assimilate. Now, for instance, we have been able to develop something called Code Blaze. Now, this is a very interesting kind of a program. It's an application which we have developed, which we have again hosted it on the CCTNS platform. Now, not many states would have this capacity or this program, wherein we can actually monitor and track all that is happening in the court, from the court, centering around the court and the dynamics of the court. Now, not only the police investigator, who was the investigator, how many times he's come to the court, the number of adjournments the court had given, who are the witnesses. From the witnesses' perspective, also we can do an analysis with regards to the kind of witnesses. Sometimes we have to stop witnesses. Then, who are the lawyers and advocates who have appeared, and how many times they have appeared? How many cases we can do a run analytics on the lawyers also, and we can come down from lawyer specific, like this particular lawyer in how many cases, what kind of cases he has appeared, he has engaged. Then likewise, even the courts. Now we can even do an analytics and give you a kind of a classification of which court did what, how many times a court has adjourned, and how many kind of outcomes the verdicts of the court, the kind of verdicts has been given. We can do that kind of analytics also on the basis of this ICJS and the CCTNS platform. Now, then, of course, this is a very individual kind of, our state specific. But then, how do we use the data? Now, this data and this interpretations would be only relevant for a certain decision making, but it may not be necessarily for the rank and file. And for the common man, again, for a systemic improvement, perhaps we can use this data and this what we can interpolate and extrapolate out of that. So the scope is huge. And then, but again, as I said, it's really important that we not look at it in silos and, as individual initiatives. It has to be integrated, it has to be cohesive, and then it has to be comprehensive. It should make sense. Now, just since I've been given an opportunity, I couldn't really restrain myself. My senior colleague from Kerala, Mr. Behera Saab, I know that Kerala is full of sprinters, but we also in Andhra Pradesh is known for technology. We have this Police Seva app in which we offer 87 services. And this Police Seva app was launched on the 1st of October, 2020 by our Honorable Chief Minister. And in less than 5.5 months, as many as 2,64,799 FIRs has been either viewed or downloaded. Now, that is the kind of, you see, the paradigm change and shift, the technology, access to information. You talk about empowerment of the citizen of this country. Now, this app, as what was being said, that you don't need to really physically go to the police station. You can, from your remote access of your four walls of your home, where you feel very comfortable, can access this information, can access the police services, as many as 87 of them. And this figure, 2,64,799 FIR till yesterday. You can think about the numbers. To get copy of one FIR until, like a year ago would have been, quite a humongous task, maybe a very difficult proposition to walk to the police station and ask for a copy of an FIR. But here, it's available on your palm top. So that is the kind of empowerment that we are talking about. That's the kind of, the paradigm shift and change that we are talking about because of with the technology and this digital transformation. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me move over to Dr. B.N. Shetty. While the police organizations happen to be the users of whatever is happening at the back end, you have also worked very extensively on some of these systems to do with the ICJS. Andhra happens to be one of those states, along with very few others who have taken strides in implementation of ICJS. The road has been, not been very easy. So how is it that we speed up the implementation process while also working on these databases together? Dr. Shetty.
Yes, sir. Here, actually, when we are thinking about when we start implementing the ICJS, one is that actually the 36 states have, in fact, different type of methodology, even though there is, of course, it's a state subject. There is one thing is that people talk about it's a state subject when you are talking about a uniform central platform is a challenge to implement in a state. I can give a small example of the latest. I mean, this is going on this week. I mean, in this week, one of the problem I can put into place now. See, what we have exactly done is that cybercrime, when they make a complaint, it is something like a single portal for the entire country when they make a cybercrime complaint. What happens then when they make it in a NCRP portal, it is a central portal. When they make that portal, exactly it goes to the concerned. After the officers works on that, when it has been considered to be fit for a FIR, it goes to the concerned CCTNS system. Now, some of the states they talk about when we make an FIR, we want the victim to be in the police station itself. We cannot do it. I mean, these type of challenges it comes, it's a real understanding. We have to really, it is not a technological limitation. It is not a technological limitation. Even then it's a central portal, you can call, even if they want to call, you can call and really there is no need of taking this data to the state CCTNS portal. You can process in the central CCTN portal till it is FIR takes place. After that, it can be taken to this one. This is the real, actually, everyone comes together. There may be epsilon changes in the present system, but it is feasible to actually, to facilitate the public. It is possible, actually, central portal can be adopted. There is a minor changes in the, more or less, it's addressing the crime and giving the, giving the judgment, and this is more or less same with that, even if it is a state subject. But still, the customs adopted in, I don't want to say, because I am seeing from the central point of view for the various states, I could see different states adopted different procedure. But it is always possible to bring together, to address the whole thing on a single. I mean, it will be not difficult at all. I have studied a lot in that. It is possible to have a single platform for all the states. As long as we are not achieving to that, it will be very, very difficult. It's really challenging. It's again a silo. It is actually the, at least if it is not, suppose I could see some states, they were able to integrate prosecution, forensic, prison, court within their state. If they want to go to the nationwide, for example, if suppose some state may be looking for a um, offender. I mean, they are thinking that he's an absconder, but he may be in the prison somewhere else. I mean, it is quite possible. We have seen the network. I mean, it will help a lot if they share with the other states. This many states have understood. They are coming together. Still, some states have that this data has to keep it. What I could say is that there is no challenge in the technology. Technology has got a lot of things in the technology. Only thing is that we states together has to sit and each state has to understand the requirement of sharing the data and using the single database. Of course, now the technologies are available. You can always restrict the data to the only authorized person. It's not that you are keeping the data centrally. It doesn't mean that anyone can see the data. It is not like that. It is actually on the role-based data can be shared with a single database. States have to really think that we have to come together and we have to bring the data in such a way that each can share and use the data commonly. That is what my opinion. Technology has no limitation. And when the data goes to them, some people think that we should call the victim. Some people think that it's not required. I think the previous officer, he was saying that they have created so many FIR has been ground. Even we can create the FIR by seeing the complaint itself. Now the cybercrime portal, I think financial fraud. Then I think in Delhi there are a lot of people have been directly. I mean, the money has been stopped. Payment of the money has been stopped in the financial fraud by using the online complaint. It is feasible. Thank you.
Mr. Behra, would you like to respond?
1 minute, Gulsharan, can I come in? Picking up from what Mr. Shetty is saying, and earlier comment that Mr. Behra made about one nation, one police station, I tend to quite agree with him because, technology has this great power to centralize things. And while efficiency is very desirable, how does it sit on the federal structure of India? I mean, so as I said, that this is a very prickly issue wherever there is a concurrent subject that we are dealing with, whether it's policing, whether it's health, whether it's any other area. So I do not really know. And that's what my book, The Digital State, is trying to grapple with, which is, are we looking at data interchange structures or are we looking at a centralized control and command? Because the two would have very different manifestations. How do you marry technology with federalism and make sure that it is win-win for all? Is a very big challenge. So could we, Mr. Behra, like you said, it would be very many years before we see one nation, one police station. But how fast can we see one state and one police station? Are you there, sir? And then we will see whether at the central level, there is some schema of interchanging data or there's a standardization or something like that. But are we there on one state, one police station?
Mr. Behra is not there. I guess Mr. Sawang.
Mr. Sawang, would you like to take that?
I think it is actually quite a challenge there. A lot would depend upon proper networking, proper protocols to be in position. Though we have this concept of zero FIR, if you can talk about on those concepts that you can go to any police station and lodge an FIR, give a complaint, and that FIR will be issued. And then this FIR will be transmitted to the police station relevant where the scene of offense or occurrence has taken place. Now, that is the conventional solution to what we are talking about: one police station, one state, one police station scenario. Now, it is definitely possible with the use of technology because all the police stations are linked up. Today, we have in the state of Andhra Pradesh, for example, we were able to have very good connectivity a good bandwidth, enabling even video linkages with all the 972 police stations that we have. So with that kind of a capacity which is already available, it should not be theoretically difficult to bring about a situation of one state, one police station. But again, as I said, this protocols associated surrounding this concept or this arrangement needs to be developed, because the functioning of the police at the police station centric and the day-to-day police station house management needs a lot of capacity building there. So therefore, on one hand, technological solutions are available, but then on the other hand, you need to get ready, that the other elements which is required to make sure that this concept is effectively operational. So those
Mr.
kind of
Behra
challenges.
joined us back. So Mr. Behra, actually, I was resonating your point of view that it's going to be many, many years before we see one nation, one police station. But do you think, are we any closer to one state, one police station? You are on mute, sir.
Yeah, sir, the police station concept is actually territorial. It is just like actually going to a tea shop very near to your house. So a particular person, if he has something to report, so he goes physically to the police station. Now, what is happening in the virtual world, if that particular person doesn't have to go from his house and he can actually log into a particular URL and then does all the things, then it is possible. But all the police work cannot be digital. We have to catch a criminal and physically we have to bring him, keep him in a lockup or something, produce him in the court. All these things are there. So, and second thing is that in India being a very large country with so much of language, culture, etc., that is going to be an issue. Say, for example, a particular person may not be able to understand another person's language. So police station being actually in a virtual space, it's possible. I'm not saying that it is not possible, but today the law is such that a police station has to be notified in a particular building and also having a particular jurisdiction territorially. I mean, that is how the concept is. So you have to virtualize that entire thing if you want to go for one police station. Maybe, let's say, for example, after some years, all language speaking people will be available in a backup setup and where the people are going to interact. See, what we are doing now, the smart police station is this. There is actually a big ATM-like machine, which actually what happens is that if a particular person, if he wants to go and he sits there in privacy, he interacts with the police and the police person comes in a video and takes his problems and he can scan his document, he gets that and he does all the kind of things. So there is a backup setup is there because police is such that crime and criminal cannot be totally on a particular virtualization, cannot be done. That is what my appealing is that. But over the period of time, many of the activities of the police will be virtualized. There is no doubt many of them have already become.
Yeah, so that's, one reform beginning to happen. So that's where I asked that, do you see that happening over the next 5 years? Because, if you look at, there's a fear factor of people to go to the police station at all. They'd rather file it on an email than, meet somebody face to face. Quite a lot of times, because, it used to be earlier with income tax. Now that has become, the human interface has gone there. So a lot of things have changed and things are far more streamlined. I quite agree with you, and they still have to, still catch the theft of tax and still catch tax evaders. Maybe far more intense in the case of policing, but to whatever extent possible, can the initial interface or whatever can be automated at the least at a state level. national level is a far cry. I really don't know how feasible that will be. And Shetty Saab, I really empathize with you. You have one of the most difficult jobs, because how do you do this concurrent test matricing over something which is as sensitive as policing?
But actually, when exactly happens is that when a person makes a, I'm totally agreeing that it is not that physical police station is one. Physically, there will be multiple police, but there will be a single portal. Even today, people state-wise, of course, people make a complaint. Okay, then what exactly happens is that up to the last minute, even before making the FIR, they can call the person who has actually made the complaint. It is all right. That part is all right. You come up with that. You can go up to that extent. But up to that level, things should work on the single portal. I don't think that it has any difficulty if it is state-wise or a country-wide. The problem it comes, for example, today, if I go to Kerala, if I land up in a problem, I want to make an FIR. First of all, I have to find out which portal I have to make the complaint. That is the basic thing, even if there is a portal. I know there is no uniformity in the portal. Then again, I have to think about there may be some issues in the portal, multiple links. Then I have to find out which police station. This actually, the people, those are generally, I get the calls and I too listen to the people where I could see that lodging complaint itself, then forget about other investigation part. That comes to the subsequent part. So my view is that it is possible to have a single portal where you make a complaint. Then the complaint should be, communication should be continued with the person through the portal till the FIR is done. Even before making FIR, you want to see the victim face, you can see the victim face through video or some mechanism you can do it. Then you can ask him to produce the things. It is possible to now video conference has become so common with everyone. Everyone can do it, video call or WhatsApp call. The people are doing it, so there is no difficulty. So my view is that, my thought is, it is not difficult to handle up to the level of creating FIR. Subsequent inquiry and
Let me ask you a very basic question. You know, are police stations not linked with PIN codes? I mean, sorry, my naivety, but I thought that would be the logical thing to do.
No, but actually most of the police stations are geofencing has been done. As on today, many police stations have done.
No, not geofencing. Geofencing in a commonly available parlance.
But actually, it is not very well defined. The police station jurisdiction is not very well defined. It is actually, there are problems in the.
Isn't that a very basic reform that we link it to a PIN code or something like that, which everyone would know?
No, it has to be done. Geofencing, it is through their GPR. On that it has to be linked.
But why? From a citizen perspective, why?
No, the thing is that the present system we have to continue. I don't think that we can tell them that, okay, one PIN code, one police station. That concept is not there as on today. Even some road, other side of the road belongs to one police station.
I find, similar problems in other governance systems. Like, I went for this COVID vaccination. So the system asked me what is the district and what is the block. Now, how the hell do I know what is the district and block in Delhi?
Now they stopped it.
So I called up the hospital and I said, what district, what block? The hospital was clueless. They said, we have no idea. This is our PIN code. So PIN code is something that everybody uses. And, there is one universal truth, which is the PIN code. Anyway, so I think given this status in the next 5 years, I don't know how much of ground we can cover in policing, but we would attempt to still do the book and, take everybody's help to write these papers.